Invest Africa, proudly brought to you by KPMG.
It's that time of the week again where we look at the investment on the continent. I'm Nozipho Mbanjwa and this is Invest Africa, and thank you for making the time to join us. Now on the show today, we're going to be talking about mobile shopping, or as it's been coined, MCommerce, and how it's captivating local markets. With 140 million mobile users on the continent, and that number is growing, mobile money is leapfrogging traditional banking structures, enabling Africa to move forward faster. Taking a closer look at the MCommerce landscape, producer Bhavani Naidu compiled us this report.
Cash is king, or so they say, and with most transactions on the continent being cash-based, it's easy to see why. But mobile technology could be dethroning cash in the not-so-distant future, as more people turn to mobile phones to transact. This shift in consumer interaction is coined mobile commerce, or MCommerce.
Mobile commerce is pretty easy. It's a transaction of a monetary value using any type of mobile device.
Just last month, Ericsson released its Sub-Saharan Mobility Report, looking at how mobile technology is being utilized on the continent. We spoke to the company's local head to find out more.
The Sub-Saharan African market has been seeing a tremendous growth of voice services over the past years. We have some 570 million subscriptions in the market now. The most striking thing that we see coming ahead in this report is that mobile data is happening, and that means that we go from some 70 million, 75 million mobile data subscription today up to a 700 million mobile data subscription up in 2019, and we're likely to see a data growth in the market of about 20 times. So there's both the growth of subscriptions and then there's of course an increased usage per subscription in the market as well. So a lot of the things we've seen in other markets is likely now to replicate in the Sub-Saharan market as well.
Africa has been quick to pick up on this consumer model, for if nothing else, the sheer necessity.
Half of the world's installations of mobile money solutions are in Africa, and there's a reason for that. It's exactly what you mentioned, that there is some 970 million unbanked individuals in this region, and half of them or so own a mobile phone, but not in one of them owns a bank account. So obviously the lowest step, or the easiest step to get into financial inclusion is through a mobile phone and a mobile wallet or MCommerce system, and that's why we believe it's going to be a big potential for Africa and for ourselves. And if you look at the financial inclusion, look at remittances that today get exposed to many percentages of intermediaries trying to take a cut of it. Now people can transfer money at a much lower transaction cost, obviously benefiting the individuals in Africa. We see examples of trading of crops in Nigeria. We see around the lake, we see the Lake Victoria, we see a lot of trading of fish and whatever gets. So it has a big impact for the individual consumer, individual people in Africa.
Henry Ford said if I wanted to ask people what they want, they would have said faster horses, right? So the way that we think of MCommerce is we think, okay, from bricks and mortar to desktop, we need to get a physical, online shop, so to speak. And to get from e-commerce to MCommerce, we need to copy and paste that same behavior. And that's not correct. Because what it leads to is a square peg in a round hole. When you talk about MCommerce, it's not an evolution from bricks and mortar to MCommerce. You need to rethink it completely. And it starts with understanding what people's, I suppose, natural behavior is, and trying to fit into that, as opposed to educating people to try and get them to get used to a new type of behavior.
It's exactly because MCommerce is so alien to most people that trust is a deterrent to its growth.
I think it takes time before people get the understanding of the availability of the application. There is the trust aspect. There is the learning of actually getting to know how to do it, and so I think we see a very good pickup. But over time, we think when the understanding of the applications, the relevance of it, the availability of it to start with, when that becomes much more apparent, I think we're going to see a much bigger growth.
On the MCommerce discussion panel tonight from KPMG's IT Advisory Services is Frank Rizzo. In Lagos, we're joined by Femi Akinde, is the Chief Executive and Founder of Slim Trader, and Joe Falter, the Chief Executive for Hello Food Africa. Last but certainly not least is Danson Wachemi. He's the Chief Executive of Jumbo Pay, and he joins us from Nairobi studios. Gentlemen, welcome and thank you for making the time to join us. Frank, maybe let's start off with you. We talk about MCommerce being the new frontiers. Are we there yet?
So thanks for having us again. When I was preparing for this session, I was thinking about MCommerce when we released a report in the 90s around mobile commerce. That was the explosion of e-commerce at the time and all the sort of .com era. At that time, I think it was before its time because the mobile platforms weren't quite there yet. Right now, with the explosion of cloud, the connectivity around the continent, and the power of the instruments in our hands, I think the time has come, and we're starting to see that absolutely in business.
Femi, let's come to you in Lagos. What Frank describes now is almost a coming together of different ingredients to create a conducive environment for MCommerce to take place. Talk us through the environment in in Nigeria, excuse me, and in particular, why it's allowed for this rapid explosion of MCommerce.
I think you have to look at it from, or I always look at it, we look at it from a business point of view. The cheapest means by which you distribute goods and services is the internet. And in a place like Nigeria, you find that if you can reduce your costs, thereby increasing your margins, you're better off. So businesses are taken to that. It's really, they see it as, if I can get more money out of my business, if I can get more profit out of what I already do by embracing mobile commerce, then I should do so. So that, I think, is the driving force behind mobile commerce in Nigeria. Because if the businesses weren't into it, the consumers wouldn't benefit. So you find that businesses are looking at it from a straight P&L perspective.
Joe, maybe let me get your comment on this, because oftentimes we hear the phrase, especially in a market like Nigeria, that cash is king, and that we're looking at consumers who believe in the value of cash. Given that, then, how are we moving and transitioning from a cash-based economy to one where, in essence, could be cashless?
I think what you're seeing here is that there are certain problems in the market that cash and MCommerce can solve. The problems are not new, but the methodology is new. So it's a case of getting people to trust these new methods that have come onto the market, like what we've seen in Nairobi, where, you know, in Kenya now more than 25% of the GDP is traded through M-Pesa, which is the local provider, amongst many others. So I think it's a case of getting consumers to trust in a new method of doing things, which traditionally we've seen is the barrier to getting new technology adopted. Certainly in my business, it's the problem that we're trying to solve has been on the market for a very long time. The way that we're trying to do it is very novel. So I think exactly the same applies to the onset of MCommerce.
And before we move on to Nairobi, just staying with you, George, just remind us again about this very problem that you're saying that Hello Africa or Hello Food Africa is trying to deal with.
So, yeah, sure. Hello Food is a web and mobile platform where people can order food from restaurants in their city. People have always needed to eat. People in Africa, for the most part, have always found it very difficult to order food from restaurants in their city. It's difficult to get through on the phone. It's not easy to find out which restaurants you want to order from at all. And once you do get through, you probably don't know what's on the menu. You don't know how much it costs. What we've tried to do is take aside all of that and create a very slick mobile experience where someone can download our app for free. They can immediately discover all of the restaurants that are in their area which deliver to them, and they can place an order in a very simple way without having to talk to anyone and having all of the information in front of them in a very smoothly operated app. So that's basically what we're trying to do. We're trying to break down the divisions that stop people using goods and services in their city, in our case restaurants, and really open up the variety that already exists.
Danson, let's come to you. We're hearing from Lagos this innovative way of thinking of how to get people connected to different foods and food services that they would like to maybe consume. But in Nairobi, the poster child for MCommerce really, and really looking at this on the back of M-Pesa and the success of M-Pesa. Have we moved on from money transfer and airtime transfer? Are we seeing other goods and services on the back of MCommerce?
We realize that most households in Kenya, like in many other parts of Africa, have one screen, and that screen is mobile. Most households do not have a PC. They do not have a TV either. Most of them are on mobile. So, and since, just like my colleague across in Nigeria says, this is the needs, the challenges are traditional. They are there. It's just that you have a new way we have innovated around those needs. M-Pesa has now, we've seen a change of mobile money moving to MCommerce. And this means, it's natural that money is not consumed. Money only goes to meet certain needs. And now we are seeing a trend towards a movement of technology and innovation from the transfer of money from one point to another for use at the destination points, to a point where you have money just stays within the wallets and gets consumed there. That's you get interfaces between money transfer and food outlets, online and offline.
Well, on that point, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, let's look at some of the specific investment opportunities that the MCommerce space presents here in Africa. We'll see you in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Invest Africa. Tonight we're talking about mobile commerce on the continent. We do value your input on the topic, so please engage with us. Send us an email, that's to investafrica@abn360.com, or follow myself on Twitter, that's @NoziPombandra, or @CNBC Africa. And don't forget our hashtag, which is #InvestAfrica. Frank, let me come back to you. Let's talk about opportunities that MCommerce throws up. We've said that we've really seen an uptake, and a big uptake in terms of how MCommerce has done on the continent. But where are the untapped areas? Where are the opportunities? Where is money to be made?
Okay. So I think let's pause and think about what's changed, right? As I said, this is not a new concept, but it's really taken off now. And what's changed is, and some of my fellow panelists have spoken about it in their businesses, is the ability of the platform, whatever platform people are using, that is location aware. I mean, so for me to book from a menu in a restaurant, if the phone knows where I am, it'll give me restaurants that are in my proximity to make that shorter. That technology has only been out in the last few years, and is getting into more hands across the continent. So that, I think, creates some very interesting business opportunities, because you now have the ability to know where your customer is, obviously the time of day that the person is trying to order, and you can then fulfill a need. I mean, as was mentioned earlier, the challenges we have across the continent are not new, but we have different platforms now to be able to actually solve those challenges.
Femi, coming to you in Lagos, Slim Trader actually doesn't need the internet for transactions to take place. What kind of opportunity does that throw up for your business?
Well, the way we see this is, just as Joe alluded, is the growth is coming from physical brick and mortar businesses going online. What we do is we put a platform in place so any and all businesses can go from being a brick and mortar business only to brick and mortar plus available online. So because of that, it creates a unique opportunity for not just selling across the internet, but selling across something as simple as SMS. If you can communicate electronically, a transaction can be facilitated. So that's, and depending on the kind of business and the size or the value of a transaction, that basically tells you what kind of medium would be used. I mean, SMS would be used for order values that are smaller, but the internet would be used for order values that are higher. or things that would take multiple back and forth to get through.
Femi,
So both actually work hand in hand.
Femi, let me stay with you, and in particular because your company brings consumers and brands together. Are there any major trends in terms of consumer preferences that you've been able to track in the last, say, 2 years?
Yes, we've seen, because of depression in the price point of mobile handsets, we've seen that more and more consumers are able to actually buy web-enabled phones. So we've seen lesser emphasis on SMS-based transactions and more emphasis now on web-enabled phones. So what our platform does, it makes it possible for businesses to choose to be online through SMS, web, or apps. And we're seeing less traffic across SMS, but more across web enablement. And that's getting the businesses thinking about, okay, why don't I even build a better user experience by actually going the app route? So we're seeing that businesses are seeing this as, like I said before, your cost of distribution goes down significantly. And your user experience increases because your users are now able to interact with you via multiple channels. And they're able to get the goods and services that you have available, they're able to purchase those. So we're seeing that's basically the trend we're seeing. Less SMS, more web-enabled phones, and then we're seeing a drive by businesses to actually now have their brands represented in app stores and so on.
Joe, and let me then bring the next question that comes to you, and this is around security. It sounds as if the success of MCommerce is also based on a certain degree of trust being created between the consumer and the service provider. How are we doing on that front?
I think that's absolutely right. And just to add to the sort of previous points on this, I think it's about, it's certainly about businesses getting on board with this. It's about cheap smartphones on the market. It's about the much cheaper availability of fast internet connections on mobile devices. But as you say, tying it all together is trust. People need to see a very transparent system. If they're about to engage in an MCommerce business, they need to see exactly what they're buying, what they're going to get, how they're going to pay for it, and they need to literally see the money coming in and out of their accounts, which is why these new mobile financial services are so effective. I think you see these markets which have traditionally been dominated by banks when it came to payments of these kind. And there's actually a lot of distrust when it came to the traditional banking service. And what you see with mobile payments is people see how much they have in their accounts. They make a payment and they see it arrive immediately with the person they're transacting with. So the payment technology is very clear. And then it's down to the businesses who are engaging in it to make sure that their services are very clear. We've tried to be incredibly transparent on Hello Food. People will never pay more because they're using our service than if they go to the restaurant directly. We guarantee it will always be faster for them to place their food orders through us than if they spend time on the phone and doing things like that. So we've really tried to make it simple for people and to convince them that this really is a better way for them to transact. And I think the mobile companies that are really trying to push mobile financial services are totally on board with that. We've recently taken investment from MTN and Tigo and other players who are really trying to get on this data and mobile financial services revolution that MCommerce is bringing.
Great.
Yeah, so I want to add to that. I think we threw around a couple of words there which are going to be key in the success of this going forward, and that's security and trust. One that I haven't heard discussed yet is privacy, because clearly there's also the privacy element of the person who's doing the transaction that still needs to be protected. That personally identifiable information for that individual has to be protected as well. You don't want that abused. Because then you break trust and you lose trust. So it's such a fine line to navigate between those two things. And that, I think, across the continent still has some way to go.
Danton, I think the gauntlet has been thrown right in front of you. Frank has raised the question of privacy. What has been the Kenyan example when it comes to making sure that line of privacy is maintained, especially in a market where we've seen such a great convergence between telecommunications and banking?
the real driver for the growth, the very fast growth we've seen in MCommerce in Kenya, has been the very clear, and there's been a lot of brand trust that has been created by or through very well and well communicated messages, especially from the main providers. If you look at someone like Safaricom's M-Pesa, they identified from very early and were able to communicate with the local population clearly and created a very early element of brand trust. And then the bit for transaction visibility, that I can send you a transaction, I do a transaction and from my mobile phone and you receive it the other side. That really has had a lot of, it's been a major factor. If you look at that, it's a major factor than even where and who does what with the data that they collect from my transactions. Now we have laws that have, Kenya has moved fast towards enactment of laws related to the ICT, the kind of transactional, the regulation around the e-transactions and general communication. Of course, there has been also a lot of concerns, but I think the real driver here, the issues of privacy have not really been an inhibiting factor to they've not stopped any growth, or they've not played a major factor. The concerns around privacy and security has not played a major role in if they've not tried to restrict or have not hindered the growth of MCommerce. I'd like to also revisit the issue of investment on MCommerce. Obviously we have two main areas of transactions. At Jamopay, we have observed that e-commerce, that is online, MCommerce application of that is happening, but you still have a lot of way to go. Yes. I think the real growth now happening in Nairobi is the growth of MCommerce at the point of transaction that is face-to-face. That is at the street level, at the shopkeeper's level. Yes. At the mamamboga, that is the small traders level. And is a major, we see there is a lot of, transactions have a lot of friction. Yes. We have a big role to play on making sure that that transaction is frictionless. And that can only mean that we have a huge investment that is supposed to go towards the setup of an infrastructure, something like NFC acquisition infrastructure, yes, or other MCommerce transaction acquisition infrastructure. That is a big investment opportunity.
Danton, yes. I think those are all very significant contributions, in particular looking at the investment opportunities in and around the space. In the interest of time, I'm going to maybe go to the different corners of the continent and just get some closing comments. And Femi, I'd like to start off with you, and I'd like you to maybe comment on what the world stands to learn from Africa's experience with MCommerce, because it certainly seems that we've had very, very good uptake for MCommerce. What lessons can we share?
This has been a leapfrog for this. There was really no e-commerce. So it's been straight from little or no e-commerce to MCommerce, because and the whole world is all trading or buying and transacting on the phones right now. Africa didn't have the precedence of e-commerce. It's just been mobile commerce. So the world will learn a lot we'll see a lot of innovation around the space in Africa, because we're having to do things a different way. Because the businesses that are bringing their goods online or onto the mobile phone are having to basically bring it online via their mobile phone. So for example, our platform allows businesses to make goods available, manage their inventory all through their mobile phone. Their consumers are also interacting with the storefronts that those businesses set up all through the mobile phone as well.
Femi,
so if you look at that, that's a different
Femi, I'm going to have to move on. We've got less than 2 minutes, unfortunately. Okay. And I want to move on to Joe. Your final comment, Joe. If there's one takeaway that you think the world should be taking from this conversation, and in particular this experience that Africa has had, what would that be? And in a couple of seconds.
Yeah, this is all about simplicity. We need to make transactions simple for people to understand and engage in. MCommerce is actually a very, very simple way to transact, or at least mobile money is, compared to traditional methods. And we've certainly seen our business from starting 13 months ago on a mobile platform, we now are nearly 50% mobile transactions, which is outstanding, and it's certainly not what I had expected. So it's all about keeping it simple, keeping the transaction simple, and keeping it very transparent.
Simple and transparent, the biggest lesson for the world of this experience.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that Africa can teach the rest of the world is how quickly we can embrace change as long as we understand that simplicity. So getting that message out to consumers and how they can utilize it, that's number one.
It seems as if the point of departure this evening is simplicity and agility. Thank you, gentlemen, for making the time to join us. And that does bring us to the end of Invest Africa tonight. That's a big thank you to Frank Ritso from KPMG's IT Advisory Services. In Lagos, Femi Akinde, the Chief Executive and founder of Slim Trader, Joe Falter, Chief Executive for Hello Food Africa, and Danson Muchemi, Chief Executive of Jumbo Pay, and he joined us from our Nairobi studios. Don't forget to send us your comments on the details below on the screen. But now Bruce Whitfield is standing by to bring you Tonight with Bruce. From myself and the Invest Africa team, it's goodbye for now.